Hello once again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm putting this video together just to give you a quick lowdown on what we call transliteration. The word transliteration means taking the letters and going across, going across from one language or writing system to another. And so, for example, the letters in Greek, like B, would turn in Greek into the letter beta. See how easy that is? And the letter A in English could turn into the letter alpha. That doesn't work with all of those letters. We've got this letter in Greek, for example, it's called key, and if we want to turn that into English, we'd have to put it as KH or CH or something like that. That's the equivalent. What we're talking about is phonetics. It's a phonetic sound. B makes a B sound. A makes an A sound. K in Greek makes a K sound. That's how we represent that in English. That's what's called transliteration. Then the easiest way to do that is to know your alphabet pretty well. So I'm assuming that you know your English alphabet pretty well. We need to learn the Greek alphabet. And so here's a quick rundown of the Greek alphabet. In Greek, we have uppercase letters and lowercase letters. And so I'm going to write them both. This is alpha, alpha. We have beta, beta. The next letter is a gamma, gamma, G-A-M-M-A. Delta is the fourth letter, delta. Makes a D sound. Epsilon, epsilon. And the next letter is zeta, zeta. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta. Eta, it's a vowel, even though it looks like an H in English. That's a Greek letter, eta, long E. Eta. Theta is the next one, like an O with a horizontal line through the middle of it. And the lowercase looks like that too, theta. The next letter is iota, the letter I, and a really small I there, iota. The next letter, kappa, kappa, like a big K and a small K. Kappa. And then lambda, and mu, mu. The next letter is nu. Nu makes an N sound, but the lowercase looks like the letter V with us, huh? But that's an N, nu. The next letter is xi. Xi makes a KS sound. Omicron, that means small o. Omicron, micro O. Omicron. P. You might know it as the letter pi, but we're going to say P. And then this one looks like a P, but it's actually an R sound. It's called rho. Rho. And then we have sigma. Here's a capital sigma. Here's a medial sigma. Sigma. If it's at the end of a letter, or excuse me, if sigma is at the end of a word, it'll have a final form like this, sigma. And then tau, the T sound, and it even looks like a T, tau. And then we have the word, the letter upsilon, upsilon, uppercase and lowercase, upsilon. The letter phi, phi, chi, and then you keep C, looks like a trident like this, and lowercase looks like that too, C. And then the letter omega is at the end. O, mega, the mega O, the big O, uppercase and lowercase. So these are all the Greek letters, uppercase and lowercase, that you'll see combined to make words in the Greek New Testament. And these are the names of the letters. I've written them out in English so that you know what those look like. Good words to remember if you're playing Scrabble or Words with Friends, because they, actually exist in the alphabet too. But what we want to do is think to ourselves, what would such a letter be equivalent to if we're writing it out in English, so that we can practice reading it quickly, but also so that we can find it using Bible software that gets us closer and closer to the Greek vocabulary that we want. It's no good if you don't know what the Greek language looks like, for example. To see a word in your study that goes like this, and you say, "Oh, how do I even pronounce that?" Well, you don't know how to pronounce it unless you know the letters. So this has a lambda. That's this letter here, and an omicron. There's an omicron, and then the squiggly thing is that lowercase gamma, and then another omicron, and then this final sigma here. And so I know, if I know how to pronounce these letters, that it's a o, lo, log, logo, logos. And what I want you to do is to know the alphabet well enough so that when you see that, you can just read it out, logos. And one good way to practice that is to remember what that would be equivalent to for each of these letters. So what are these 5 letters equivalent to if we're just writing this out in English? Well, that'd be lambda would be equivalent to an O. An L, sorry. Lambda would be equivalent to an L. Omicron would be equivalent to an O. Gamma makes a G sound, so that's equivalent to a G. There's another O. And the sigma is equivalent to S. And so you're pronouncing this word as logos because you would pronounce this word as logos. So that's what I want you to learn. As you practice tonight, as you practice over the weekend, I'm going to quiz you on it. I'm going to give you some Greek letters, some Greek words, and expect you to transliterate them to assess you in your practice with this. Because if you keep that practice up, it'll make your Bible study at the higher division exegetical classes a whole lot easier. In order to do that, let's have a good equivalent for these Greek letters. And I'm going to put these in the middle of this page that I've just written on. So notice that if I have an A, an alpha is going to have the equivalent of the letter A. Okay. If I see a beta in a word, that's going to have the English equivalent of the letter B. A gamma is going to have the English equivalent of the letter G. A delta is going to be rendered in transliteration as the letter D. Epsilon is just a regular old short letter E. And you can use the letter Z in English Roman characters to transliterate the Greek letter zeta. Eta is going to be E as well, but it's going to be a long E, and so you can put a macron on that or a long mark to remind your reader that you recognize that you're dealing with a long E, eta. There's 2 letters for E in Greek. One is short, that's this epsilon here, and one is long, it's this eta here. The equivalent for theta is this unvoiced a blend, th. It makes the sound th, as in think. Okay, and so when you transliterate it, you just use th in English. You use a nice Roman character I for the iota. It's a vowel that makes the I sound. Kappa is K, and lambda is L. Mu is M, and nu is N. Xi is always going to be the letter X. and it makes the KS sound, X, like that. Omicron is a short O, whereas omega at the end of the alphabet is a long O, and so that's why I'm going to use a macron there to distinguish between the omicron and the omega. P is a P. Rho is an R. All the sigmas can be an S, and tau transliterates T. Upsilon can either be Y or it can be U, depending on what looks better. Sometimes upsilon is best transliterated as the letter Y, as in the word cyclops, Q-clops, right? That's why it has a Y in it. But sometimes you're going to use a U instead, just because the Y would make it look a little funky in English transliteration. The phi makes an F sound. But I'm going to encourage you not to use the letter F for its transliteration, but the letters PH instead, because it really is an aspirated P. Just like the key is an aspirated kappa, so you can say KH, or as I'm suggesting here, a CH, as in the word Christ. Key is the first letter in Christos, the Greek word for the title of anointed one, or Christ. And finally, we have this double consonant psi, and so that's the first letter in the word psychology, for example, and it transliterates PS. So all those English equivalents or Roman character equivalents that I've written in green and I've circled for you, those are the letters that I want you to practice in representing what the one-to-one correspondence is between Greek letters in Greek words and how you'll render them in transliterated English. And that's going to be one piece of practice to help you pronounce the stuff and get familiar with the Greek language. Besides those letters, there are combinations of vowels that we call diphthongs. Diphthongs are two vowels in a row that make a special sound. For example, we have alpha, iota. We have alpha, upsilon, epsilon, iota, and epsilon, upsilon. This first one makes the I sound, I, and this is ow, and this is a, and this is ow. If I have a omicron iota, it's going to make the sound oi, as an oink, and if I have an omicron upsilon, it's going to make the oo sound, as an ooze. I even have one that starts with upsilon and has a iota on it, and that goes wee, like that, wee. And so that's just other sounds that would transliterate well as, respectively, I, AI, ow, AU, A, EI, O, as in like pseudonym, okay, oi, again, as an oink, oo, and UI, we. So not much new there, except that there are some other vowel sounds that might be helpful to know how to pronounce. One last point is that there are letters that take what are called smooth breathing marks or rough breathing marks. And this will be the last point in this video. If I have a vowel like alpha, it could have either a smooth breathing or a rough breathing. That little comma at the top of that alpha, whether it's going forward or backwards, is called a breathing mark. And if it looks like this, it's a smooth breathing. This sounds like ah. But if it looks like this next one, it's a rough breathing and it's pronounced ha. So if you have a breathing that looks like this, you're going to transliterate an H before it. But if you have one that looks like this, no H. It's just ah. Okay, that works for all vowels. So if we think, for example, about the next vowels, epsilon and eta and iota and omicron, upsilon, and omega, we can have smooth breathing, rough breathing, 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 smooth breathing, rough breathing. And the English equivalents would be or he or a, long E, or hey, long E, I, iota, or hi, o, or ho, u, or hu, and finally o, or ho, long. There's only one other letter that takes a breathing mark, and that is the letter rho. If it starts a word, it will always have a breathing mark, only at the beginning of words. And then that one is translated with RH, as in rhinoceros and rhododendron and all the rest of the English words that begin with RH that come from Greek. That's a quick down and dirty equivalency chart for your Greek transliteration into English or Roman characters. Just looking for phonetic equivalencies so that you can get started and practice with some kind of passable comfort in reading Greek letters. Little learning can go a long way to offer you some comfort with that, some ease of getting closer and closer to the New Testament literature as it was originally written. That's all for now, and I'll look forward to seeing you in class. Take care.